Good morning. God bless you and welcome. It's good to see you. It's good to be here this morning. This morning the message has kind of I could easily have made like 3 different messages out of this. And yet I want to try to tie this together, even though we could have a message on part A, part B, and part C. And so I hope you can follow along as we shift gears a little bit. We'll start off with an experience. I always enjoy when things happen in my life that I can learn from. And I have an ugly story to tell. You know, we live in town, we have town sewer, we have town water. It's nice to live in town. You don't have to have a well. It has its benefits. We have a basement. In our basement, there is a floor drain. It's a 4-inch drain. A couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to be in the basement when our washing machine had finished its cycle and was exhausting its water. And I noticed that, like it's designed to, it goes out the back of the washing machine into the drain that's in our house. It's exposed. So it goes into that pipe that runs down into the floor, and then it runs wherever it goes under the concrete floor. We happen to have a drain, a 4-inch drain, right about 4 feet away from where the washing machine is, and I started noticing when the washer was putting the water out, it was coming up out of the floor drain instead of running away. One of those happy moments where you're happy to be a house owner and there's nobody else that will take care of it but me. I could go send my wife to do it, but that wouldn't be the manly thing to do. A plugged floor drain is not exactly your favorite job to do in an evening. I tried some feeble attempts at my limited knowledge of not being an experienced plumber. I know there's a thing called a snake, and so I happen to be a redneck guy that figures out how to do your own thing when you don't want to spend money for stuff. I have access to tools at Okno and the skill to build things. Anyways, I got some stuff together and started poking around in that hole and try to make that water go down. It wouldn't go down. It just stayed there, about a 1/4 inch above the floor. There's a little bit slope, so it stayed in that 2-foot diameter circle, basically. It didn't smell good, I can tell you that. I left it for that night, and I knew I had work to do the next day. I went to Home Hardware, talked to the wise men, and they said, "Oh, we have the thing for you. You get this thing on the wall that says whatever, it's a chemical of some sort, you dump it in there, and 15 minutes later, it's going to be open. Guaranteed." I said, "Well, that other bottle says guaranteed, this one doesn't." I say, "Well, I can guarantee this above that." "Okay, fine. I don't care, I just want it to work." I take it home, and this stuff is so potent, the instructions tell you you have a bucket ready, and you dump a little bit in, and you have you ready to put your bucket over it because it might blow up in your face. It doesn't use those words, but I think that's what they mean. It can start a chemical reaction, and it can actually basically blow up in your face, yeah. And so you lean over there, and you're slowly dumping in there, and you're actually hoping it is going to do something because you actually want it to work. And 2 to 4 cups, they say. So I dump a little bit in there, and I'm waiting, hopefully, that something is going to happen. I can tell you what, something did happen. It was evident by a magnification of the smell. I will spare you the gruesome details of trying to describe what it smelled like, because I can pretty much guarantee your imagination cannot overdo it. But when you prefer to have your mouth closed rather than your nose, because if you have your mouth open, you can start chewing it, that's pretty bad. I dumped the whole bottle in there. It was boiling and foaming, and the foam was churning around, and it was slowly coming up higher and higher. I had managed to plunger it down about 2 inches, and so it was building back up again. I was like, boy, I hope that thing doesn't come up too far. But it wouldn't go down. I left it for an hour, and it didn't go down. I was like, well, maybe this takes a little longer than 15 minutes. Maybe I'll just, this is mid-morning. I was like, I got to go to work. I went to work. I came back at, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, because the problem hasn't gone away yet. I knew that. And we couldn't do laundry. And the kitchen sink goes into there. We couldn't use that. And thankfully, the rest of the house stuff worked and drained apparently somewhere else. I went back to Home Hardware, talked to the wise man again, and I said, I'm back, and that's not good news. And he kind of smiled, and okay, so he thinks for a while. He says, well, if that didn't open it, then you have a problem. I know, tell me about it. What do I do? And then he said, well, if that chemical doesn't open it, that means something is lodged in there, like maybe a toy or a sock or something that chemical doesn't dissolve. You gotta get your hand down in there, reach down in there, and find whatever's down there and pull it back out. Okay, hang on a second. At that moment, my brain went into hyperlapse and slow motion at the same time. I'm standing there in Home Hardware, and all of a sudden I'm thinking back, okay, that drain at home, you're telling me that I'm going to put my hand into that stuff? Seriously? I told my wife that if we have to call a plumber, it's going to cost us at least $300 because plumbers need to get paid. I wouldn't do it for $300. But at that moment, I was like, how much do I like my $300? Seriously? And he said, well, or you can call a plumber. And so I'm still in Home Hardware, and I'm still thinking in my slow motion and high speed at the same time. And it's like, the fact that I'm going to put my hand, and I had prodded in there with sticks and stuff before, so I knew about how deep it was, approximately about 20 inches down. It's like, okay, how far is 20 inches, for me to get down in there and grab whatever's in there? Hey, where is my face at that point? If I stick my hand, okay, that's a 4-inch hole. It's full of black liquid. Where does that water go when my arm goes in that hole? I told the guy at Home Hardware, I've got to think about that one. I left and I called the plumber. I talked to the plumber. He happened to own a house in Arbrig about the same time period in history as mine. And he said he actually had a plug drain too. Oh, good, this guy would know what he's talking about. He can help me. So I asked him, what did you do? He said, well, mine had broken and shifted and stuff like that, and I had to jackhammer out the whole floor and rip it all out and put in a new drain. I say, oh no, help me, that's not what I want. I'd much rather stick my hand in that hole and get it done with, And, well, he didn't have time till late at night, maybe he could. I went back home and I looked at that hole. I was like, what do I do? I have some skills and I have some access to tools. Like I said, I built myself a little thing. I got that water out of there until it was down as far as it would go. Cup at a time. I stuck my hand in there. Anyways, we'll leave that at that. I still feel like God did a miracle. It was all physical, I know, but out of completely randomness, I ended up grabbing a piece of wire somewhere yay long, bent it at 90 degrees, about an inch from the end, stuck it in my drill and stuck it in there and pulled the trigger on the drill. And it just went right through that plug thing, whatever it was, and the water drained away. And I was like, why didn't I do that like yesterday already? It would have been so easy. I could have spared myself a lot of hassle. Anyways, I praise the Lord for helping me with that. But later I thought about, as I was thinking about the message, Abe, you can put that PowerPoint up now. The topic is very opposite of what I just talked about. I was thinking about holiness. It's something that has pondered in my mind for months already. Holy living, holy God, holy thoughts. But in order to think of holiness, I also realize outside of God, we are very wicked people. We are very sinful. We are very ugly. I found it actually surprising that some of the descriptions I used to describe how I felt going through this experience is not that far removed from some of God's descriptions of sin. We'll look a little bit first at sin, some verses of that. 1 John 3 verse 4 says, whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law, for sin is the transgression of the law. James 4:17 says, therefore to him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him it is sin. Romans 14:23 says, he that doubteth is damned if he eat, because he eateth not of faith. For whatsoever is not of faith is sin. And Romans 3:23 says, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. It talks a little bit about what sin is. We all knew that. But how does God look at sin? How bad is sin really? I don't think we realize how sinful our sin really is. How much God hates sin. How much it stinks. Hosea 7 verse 2 says, and they consider not in their hearts that I remember all their wickedness. Now their own doings have beset them about. They are before my face. That's like me sticking my hand in that ugly drain, and that water is in front of my face. At 4 feet away, it already was smelling so bad that you could taste it in your mouth. Sticking my hand in that ugly hole and bringing my face within 3 inches of that water doesn't make it better. It makes it worse. God says it is before his face. Jeremiah 17 verse 9 says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Ezekiel 36:25. Not sure if I have that verse on the overhead actually. Then will I sprinkle clean water upon you, and ye shall be clean from all your filthiness and from all your idols, and I will cleanse you. This is maybe a verse I should have more at the end, but this is more of a promise. James 1:15. Then when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin, and sin when it is finished, bringeth forth death. A couple of verses from Psalms 38, verse 4 and 5. For mine iniquities are gone over mine head, as an heavy burden they are too heavy for me. My wounds stink and are corrupt because of my foolishness. There's the word. our sin stinks. You ever thought of that? What does your sin smell like to God? It's before his face. Isaiah 1 verse 4 through 6. Ah, sinful nation, a people laden with iniquity, a seed of evildoers, children that are corrupters, they have forsaken the Lord. They have provoked the Holy One of Israel unto anger. They are gone away backwards. Why should ye be stricken any more? Ye will revolt more and more. The whole head is sick, the whole heart faint. From the sole of the foot even unto the head there is no soundness in it, but wounds and bruises and putrefying sores. They have not been closed, neither bound up, nor mollified with ointment. Starts to sound a little bit like my drain. Ugly sores, ugly smell. And we pat ourselves on the back and say, yep, I grew up in a Christian home. I went to a Christian church. I went to a Christian school. I have Christian parents. I'm a Christian. I'm pretty good. I've never stolen anything. I've never cheated on my wife. I've never been drunk. Or who do we think we are? How do we describe our, I've only gossiped, I've only disobeyed my parents, I've only been rebellious, I've only this, I've only that. Ooh, sin is sin. And our sin stinks. I want to take you from my floor drain. I had used some tools to try to open my floor drain. And as much as, I didn't have gloves, so I'm a do-it-yourself guy. I put plastic bags over my hand, But you work with that stuff. You can't get away from it. All of a sudden that thing whips me across my leg when I spin it with my drill, and then it does get on your hands after all, and you work with that yucky stuff. It makes you dirty. Even if I wouldn't have touched it, I still felt like it had made me dirty. I showered harder that night than I usually do. You scrub and scrub because it feels like this stuff just sticks to anything it gets close to. I took all my tools outside, I put the garden hose on, I cleaned everything off. I never cleaned my tools, but then I did. Why? Because it's filthy. It stinks. In comparison, I felt like, having worked in my basement, to walk into the kitchen is like, I need a shower before I can walk into my kitchen. It just feels that ugly. But my kitchen's a pretty clean place. I will sit on the floor and eat food off the floor, and we have a little one that likes to crawl all over the place and of course put everything in his mouth he can possibly get to his mouth. There might be food scraps on the floor, there might be leftover eggs on the floor, or rice on the floor, or diapers in the corner, or, sorry honey, I shouldn't give away all our secrets, but we have lots of evidence that there's people alive in this place, okay? We live there. All of you that have children, you know what it's like. The floor isn't always spick and span clean. But in comparison to my drain in the basement, my kitchen is clean. Now you take the bride on her wedding morning, just put on her wedding dress that is clean and white and beautiful, and you put her in my kitchen, all of a sudden my kitchen doesn't feel so clean anymore. If I hadn't swept the floor just before that, or if I hadn't washed my floor before that, then you would want to hold up the skirt a little bit so it wouldn't touch the floor, because you're going to get that white wedding dress dirty from my clean floor. In comparison to the wedding dress, my kitchen floor is dirty. And you're definitely not taking that wedding dress to my basement, okay? It doesn't belong there, given the description I just gave you of that, right? And there's obviously a lesson in this. In our human minds, we equate our sin with that drain. And that, I think, is pretty obvious. And throughout this message so far, you've gotten that already. And we think of our righteousness as being this wedding dress. It is clean. It is very different than my floor drain. How does God, where on this scale of dirty and clean does God's holiness come in? Isaiah 64 verse 6 kind of answers that question. But we are all as an unclean thing, and all our righteousness, our wedding dress righteousness, is as filthy rags. We do all fade as a leaf, and our iniquities like the wind have taken us away. So our righteousness, our wedding dress, in God's eyes, looks like filthy rags, or a bloody cloth, you might call it, if you went to the more original language. Ponder that for a moment. If you use that comparison, that my wedding dress, in God's eyes, equates to my floor drain that smells so bad you can chew it, then how holy is God? Then how much can you pat yourself on the back and say, oh, I've only gossiped sometimes. I'm not that bad. I wish I've struggled with this somehow, to help you grasp and get a picture in your head of God's holiness. And I have a couple pictures up that Abe is going to put up. I know it's a far stretch. It's not even a good representation. But I want to read Revelations chapter 4. And I welcome you to try to bring your mind and your heart into that presence. The description of the throne of God. Bring yourself there in your heart. At the feet of the throne of God. After this I looked, and behold, a door was opened in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was as if it were a trumpet talking with me, which said, Come up hither, and I will show thee things that must be hereafter. And immediately I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on the throne. And he that sat was to look upon like a jasper and a sardine stone, and there was a rainbow round about the throne, in sight like unto an emerald. And round about the throne were 24 seats, and upon the seats I saw 24 elders sitting, clothed in white raiment. And they had on their heads crowns of gold. And out of the throne proceeded lightnings and thunderings and voices, and there were 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits of God. And before the throne there was a sea of glass like unto crystal, and in the midst of the throne and round about the throne were 4 beasts full of eyes before and behind. And the first beast was like a lion, and the second like a calf, and the third beast had a face as a man, and the fourth beast was like a flying eagle. And the 4 beasts had each of them 6 wings about him, and they were full of eyes within, and they rest not day and night, and saying, Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, which was and is to come. And when those beasts had given glory and honor and thanks to him that sat on the throne, who liveth forever and ever, the 24 elders fall down before him that sat on the throne, and worship him that liveth forever and ever, and cast their crowns before the throne, saying, Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created. When you come into a place where there is something so awesome that your mind cannot come up with words to express itself, something deep inside just wells up, and it's just that, wow. I don't know if the Northern Lights last week did that to you. I've heard some descriptions of it, that it was something like that. You couldn't describe how amazing it was. I always kind of think, maybe that's just my imagination, but here in Revelation 4, where it talks about these 4 beasts which had 6 wings, and they that were full of eyes, they rest not day and night, saying, Holy, holy, holy. I've always pictured that phrase that they're repeating over and over 24/7 is not God having put up his recorder and programmed it to say these 10 words or whatever and hit repeat. I always picture it's an absolute awe. These beasts are there, and it's just the inward welling up of expression. They don't have words to express themselves. They see God sitting on his throne, and the holiness and the light and the thunderings and all that stuff is going on. It just wells up, just holy, holy, holy. It's just the only thing they can think of. It's just holy. As I pondered that, Isaiah 6 came to mind. In that year, Isaiah chapter 6, verse 1. And in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw also the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. Above it stood the seraphims. Each one had 6 wings. With twain he covered his face, with twain he covered his feet, with twain he did fly. And one cried unto another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the posts of the door moved at the voice of him that cried, and the house was filled with smoke. Then I said, Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of people of unclean lips, for mine eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. With what attitude do you come before the holy throne of God? You still patting yourself on the back thinking I'm not so bad? In comparison to God's holiness, his cleanness, compared to my floor drain. I hope somehow I can motivate you and draw you into a worship at the awesomeness of God's holiness. Woe is me, for I am undone. I am a man of unclean lips. There is no way I can, in my poor English vocabulary, properly describe the awesomeness and the holiness of God. Exodus 15:11 says, Who is like unto thee, O Lord, among the gods? Who is like unto thee, glorious in holiness, fearful in praises, doing wonders? Mark 9 verse 3, very different context, but it says his raiment became shining, exceeding white as snow, as no fuller on earth can white them. That was Jesus in the transfiguration. He just had a touch, even on this earth, a glimpse, a touch of heaven, and his raiment just started shining. I heard in Sunday school this morning, somebody mentioned where Moses came down from the mountain, his face shone. Why? Because he had been in the presence of God. I can put a flashlight on a wall, I can go and make something shiny clean, but as soon as I leave it, you wouldn't see it shine. You turn the flashlight off, it doesn't shine anymore. Moses, after coming down from the mountain, even minutes, and I always think it's hours, and if not even days later, his face is still shining. What do you think it's like to be in such a holy presence where even after you leave, hours later, it's still glowing off your face? Can you imagine God coming from that holiness? How much did he love you to be willing to stick his arm into that drain pit of sin? For what? To rescue me and you. That sin before his face, that smell before his being. I wouldn't have stuck my hand in that drain there was nothing down there that I wanted. Trust me. There was nothing of value in there that I needed or that I wanted. God did not stick his hand into my sin to take me out of it because of how good and how nice I was. He did it because he loved me. Same for you. He did it for you because he loved you. The almighty, holy, clean, pure God did that for you. It is in this context that I read Isaiah 55, verse 7 through 9. It says, "Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts, and let him return unto the Lord, and he will have mercy upon him, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are my ways your ways, saith the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." Has nothing to do with that, oh, I had these plans and God has higher ways and so now he has these plans. We often attribute those verses to something like that. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but I think it's so much bigger, so much deeper than that. God's ways are not our ways. We would throw that out. We would say that drain has no value. I wouldn't touch it. But God loved. His ways are not our ways. His thoughts are not like that. We can come to him, let the wicked forsake his way and come to God. Why? Because he will abundantly pardon. And that part is what is different from his thoughts to our thoughts. There. That was the introduction to the message. Now, I want you to think about this. This is where we really shift gears. We have already subtly changed from point A to point B. Now we're switching to C. With what has boggled my mind, and I invite your feedback. Tell me later what you think. You take this holy God that is pure and holy and clean and everything good comes from the Father. Then Leviticus 11:44, he says, "For I am the Lord your God, ye shall therefore sanctify yourselves, and ye shall be holy, for I am holy. Neither shall ye defile yourselves with any manner of creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. Be ye holy, for I am holy." Yeah, but I come from a floor drain. And the wedding dress looks awfully clean compared to that, and the wedding dress looks like that to God, and God says, "Be ye holy, for I am holy." Yeah, Leviticus 19 verse 2 says, "Speak unto all the congregation of the children of Israel, and say unto them, ye shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy." Leviticus 20 verse 7, sanctify yourselves therefore and be ye holy, for I am the Lord your God. Matthew 5:48, be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. 1 Peter 1:15, but as he which hath called you is holy, so be ye holy in all manner of conversation. Verse 16, because it is written, be ye holy, for I am holy. 1 Thessalonians 4:7, for God hath not called us unto uncleanness, but unto holiness. 2 Corinthians 7 verse 1, having therefore these promises, dearly beloved, let us cleanse ourselves from all filthiness of the flesh and spirit, perfecting holiness in the fear of God. 1 Samuel 2 verse 2, there is none holy as the Lord, for there is none beside thee, neither is there any rock like our God. Verse 3, talk no more so exceeding proudly. Let not arrogancy come out of your mouth. For the Lord is a God of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed. Be ye holy, for I am holy. How do you live that? It's time to close the message. Go home, be holy. What are you going to do? How are you going to be ye holy? First Samuel has a couple of things. He talks about the things we say. Don't talk proudly. Don't let arrogancy come out of your mouth. You know, as I ponder this message, and it has caused some, well, a lot of thinking, for one. The question I have, and I would love to hear your thoughts. We won't take time for it here now, but you can think about it, tell me later or whatever. Be ye holy, for I am holy. Is be ye holy, is that an action that we do, or is that a state of being? First Peter 2 verse 9 says, but ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, and holy nation, a peculiar people, that ye should show forth the praises of him who hath called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. That one verse would make it sound like that's a state of being. Ye are a holy, what did it say here? A holy nation. When you get born again, you submit to Christ, boom, you're a holy person. We understand, of course, it's clothed with the righteousness of Christ that makes you holy. My focus, and I think there's something in here, is God is calling us to live a holy lifestyle. Or daily, what we do, how we do it. Be ye holy, for I am holy. It to me sounds more like an action than just that, oh, I've got it. I think we need to, it has been good for me to ponder this, and I've been chewing on this for weeks already. What does it mean to be holy? It's okay to have fun. It's okay to enjoy life. But when I come before the throne of God and I ponder his holiness, it brings me to the humility, to the worship of woe is me, for I am undone. But it is my love for God, what he has done for me, that he was willing to reach into the drain to pick me out, that now motivates me, it inspires me, it drives me to want to be like God. I want to live a holy life. I want to be more like Jesus. Now, there is many different ways of how to apply this. It's with, how you do your work, with the attitude you serve in church, with the attitude you do. I'll let the application part on you today. What you do when you're alone, what you do in your spare time, what you do when you work or when you play or when you entertain. Is that part living out, be ye holy. Or would you say, let's forget about that while I do this? It is my desire that as a church and as individuals, that we live out a holy lifestyle in the sense of not that living that lifestyle will make you holy, or that living that lifestyle will, let me rephrase that. Doing good deeds will not get you to heaven. We are not saved by works, but by grace. But it is because we are saved, it's because of what God has done that we want to be holy like He is holy. Be ye holy, for I am holy, says the Almighty God. May God bless you.